Welcome to the What Really Happened radio show. Because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, August 20th, 2015. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's a very busy news day. Our phone lines are open, 877-300-7645. Don is sitting in our control room ready to answer the phone. We're going to have a guest in our third hour, Marianne Azizi, calling from Israel with the latest abuses of the Israeli people by the Israeli government. And Marianne is very much into family law, and it has become as abusive of the rights of parents as our own government rapidly is catching up with them. Speaking of Israel, our top story going in is Israel has now launched attacks into Syria. The Army is shelling across the border. The Air Force is conducting air raids, all on the basis of 4 rockets Israel claims was fired from Syria, and they hit Israel. No injuries whatsoever. And no elaboration, just take our word, it was Syria. And just when Israel was training for a Syrian ground invasion, what an amazing coincidence of timing. And of course, anybody who doesn't think it was a coincidence is a Jew-hating anti-Semite who wants Hitler to come back and gas the Jewish babies in the ovens. Now, seriously, anybody listening to this broadcast stupid enough to believe that Syria would invite an Israeli attack by firing rockets into Israel and then not aim those rockets at anything important? We've seen the pattern before. They hit dirt. They caused no damage, injured nobody. They exist solely to give Israel an excuse to launch an attack. By the way, remember the last time Israel went into Lebanon? Trying to get that Litani River. The Lebanese military found rockets on racks inside Lebanon, pointed back to Israel, running on timers. This is how Israel gets this stuff done. So Israel's uncorking on Syria right now. I mean, everybody's out there shooting at everybody. The Koreans are shooting back and forth. They've calmed that down a little bit. Everybody's on a hair trigger. Everybody's like, look, it's World War III. We might as well get this thing going. And, you know, all you people opposed to war, you should just shut up and go away because we're going to have fun. We're going to make money. Now, Ukraine's Donetsk Republic says that it has received information that Kiev is planning a major attack to totally encircle Donetsk, to basically lay siege to the entire territory. And certainly the shelling continues. Minsk agreement is just absolutely gone. But things are not going very smoothly for Poroshenko over in Kiev because their parliament is getting ready to pass a resolution next week on the decentralization of power and authority, which is one of the major demands coming out of Lugansk and Donetsk and Odessa. They want more autonomy, dealing with their own business. And the parliament's saying, you know, we might have to give that to them. And it may already be too late because Donetsk has now announced they will hold a referendum on merging with Russia. And I do not envy Putin his job right now. If Donetsk has a referendum, says we want to merge with Russia, Putin can't say no. Not after accepting Crimea. If he says no, it makes him look like he's backing down from U.S. expansionism. And Putin is going to have to take the position that any further attacks by Kiev into Donetsk represent attacks on sovereign Russian soil. And the war will be off and running, which is exactly what the United States wants right now, before the economy really collapses and the American people don't have the Chinese or the Russians or the Iranians to blame for it. Remember, politicians do not accept responsibility for their mistakes. They're always looking for somebody else to blame. The vast right-wing conspiracy, so forth and so on. U.S. airstrikes in Iraq and Syria have surged to new record levels. The official story always, we're not bombing Iraq and Syria. We're only bombing those evil ISIS people. And you know how evil they are because of all these professionally produced videos full of all kinds of special effects to convince you that ISIS is the new enemy we have to go to war at, wherever they may be. And they usually show up in other people's countries sitting over oil the U.S. covets. Funny how ISIS will do that. And we're getting a new round of ISIS propaganda. Oh, ISIS is killing archaeologists. ISIS is doing this. So they're ramping all of that stuff up. And that propaganda hoax is already falling apart because we're looking at a story in Fars News where Turkey is sending weapons and ammunition down to these hired mercenary groups, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS, that are fighting against Bashar al-Assad. So they can't even keep their stories straight anymore. The propaganda is so self-contradictory. Oh, ISIS and Al-Qaeda are bad, but we're going to give them weapons. And not just Turkey. I mean, that's a big stink in the middle of Hillary Clinton's email scandal. That's the big ugly secret. That Hillary sent weapons from Libya to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria to use against Bashar al-Assad at a time when there is a supposed war on terror, and Al-Qaeda and ISIS are the declared enemies. Now, that is treason. And we're going to come back to that a little bit later when we get into the latest developments on the email server scandal. Now, here's a very interesting story. We have been talking about how for months there have been photos and videos surfacing of the IDF supplying weapons, ammunition, and other equipment to Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. And Israel was saying, of course not, we wouldn't be doing, why would we do a thing like that? Well, apparently the Times of Israel has reported that Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon saying, yeah, we're providing aid to those groups, because we're helping the Druze or we're doing something. We've got a really good reason for doing this. Just take our word for it. It's all over the place. Morocco has gone public with criticism over Israel's Judaization of Jerusalem. And I'm not sure why Morocco is choosing this particular moment to stand up. They're hardly alone with that. There have been numerous resolutions from the United Nations reminding Israel that Jerusalem is not their capital. Tel Aviv is. Jerusalem is a shared city. And every time Israel goes in and says, it's all ours, the United Nations will come back and say, no, it isn't. Israel currently holds the world record for defying the most United Nations resolution. I don't know why the UN doesn't kick them out. Israel's membership at the UN had two conditions placed on it. A Palestinian right of return, and if the Palestinians chose not to return to their homes and villages taken from them during the creation of Israel, Israel had to financially compensate them. Israel has kept neither of these conditions. We need somebody with spine in the United Nations to say, all right, Israel, you're not going to play by the rules, you don't get to join the club anymore. Over in Yemen, the bombing of civilians continues. UNICEF is now reporting that a Saudi attack hit a teacher's office. They're saying it's just an act of pure bloodshed. This is not a war against ISIS or Al-Qaeda or terrorists. This is punishing the people of Yemen for kicking out their U.S. puppet ruler. That's what all of these are. Having to go into Iraq for the third time, going into Yemen for the second time. It's because all those pesky conquered people refuse to stay conquered. Don't they understand the rules we made up? And it is now being confirmed from the U.S. government. The Saudis are using cluster bombs in Yemen. Those are anti-personnel weapons. They're banned in most countries. But no, we're going to go use them because those Yemenites don't deserve the rules because they're not playing by our rules. They kicked out their U.S. How dare they think they're going to run their own country? What's wrong with those people? We have to stop this idea of people running their own country for their own welfare. That's going to lead to democracy. We can't allow that. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here and going on back to our news here. There's so much happening. I'm just having to work with all this stuff here during the break here. Now, getting on back to Yemen. The chief of the Red Cross is saying that Yemen, after only 5 months of this U.S.-sponsored Saudi punishment of the people for kicking out their U.S. puppet ruler, it looks like Syria after 5 years. That's how intense the punishment has been to Yemen. You don't kick out your U.S. puppet ruler. We will make bad things happen to you. And we'll lie to make it look like it's all your fault. Back in the 1950s, 1960s, that stuff worked. Not anymore. So, turning over to Iran, the IAEA has issued a statement that they are perfectly happy with the arrangements made by Iran to allow them to inspect the Parchin military site, which Israel has been screaming, that's where they're doing their bomb development. And the IAEA is saying, Iran says we can come in, we can look around, we can take samples. So that rug has been pulled out from the Iran warhawks because they've been trying to use Parchin all along, saying, oh, Parchin's where it's going, and Iran won't let us go into Parchin. Iran just said, yeah, come on in, take a look. Now, it looks like what Iran is really doing with that explosive chamber, which is at the heart of this whole contention, is Iran is rapidly becoming a world leader in the production of synthetic industrial diamonds. And this explosion chamber seems to be part of their technology for creating that. And that is a technology that neither the U.S. nor Israel has any legal justification to have access to. And obviously, Iran does not want Israel stealing that product idea from them. So there's a little bit of reluctance. But the IAEA is saying, we're happy. They've set something up that we actually think is going to work. Before we get going on that, we need to remember, back when Iraq was undergoing all these inspections because the U.S. insisted they were building nuclear weapons and going to attack us all and kill us all in 45 minutes if we didn't get them first, the American inspectors were accused by the other international inspectors of contaminating the inspection sites with traces of weapons-grade uranium. And the other inspectors demanded the Americans turn over the reference samples they had for comparison to do an isotopic analysis and see if what was found on those Iraqi sites was in fact from that reference sample. The Americans destroyed their reference samples, said, no, you go away, leave us alone. And they'll probably try and do the same thing with Iran, because the motto of the United States government, for that matter, Israel, if at first you don't succeed, lie, lie again. Now, Britain has just reopened their embassy in Tehran. Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond is heading up there this weekend. They're going to put the British flag up in front of the embassy. And the significance of this is that while Israel's whores in the U.S. Congress stall the United States regarding the P5+1 agreement, the rest of the world has moved forward. They're making deals. They're getting markets. They're getting access to petroleum. By the time American companies finally get there, if they get there, it's going to be too late. The Iranians are going to say, I'm sorry, you should have been here 2 months ago. We were making all the deals. All the contracts are signed. There's nothing left for America. There's no raw materials for your industry. There's no Iranian markets for your products. They're all gone. You should have been here with everybody else. That's what Israel's interference in the foreign policy of the United States government is costing us. It's going to be harming American businesses. And our economy is not resilient enough to be paying a price for Netanyahu's dreams of imperial glory as he sends American kids to conquer the evil Iranians. This isn't some abstract discussion on the other side of the globe. This is causing real harm to the U.S. economy. And apparently Israel's whores in Congress could care less. They're getting their money. Who cares about the rest of America? They're a lost cause. If they're not going to do what we tell them to do, just let them starve to death here. Now, interestingly enough, 26 American Jewish leaders just took out a huge ad in the New York Times putting their support behind the Iran deal. And we have been seeing this happen quite a bit, where Jewish Americans think this has gone on far enough. You know, the Iran deal is a good deal. Let's go with it. And Netanyahu, of course, is screaming about those treasonous American Jews because he truly believes that if you are Jewish, it doesn't matter where you live on planet Earth, your first allegiance is to him and Israel. And then if you have anything left over, the place where you're living, yeah, okay, just do something there here. U.S. military leaders are in support of the Iran deal. We've got a list that we published on WhatReallyHappened.com, 35 military leaders from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. They all signed a letter saying this is a good deal. Everybody thinks this is a good deal, except Israel and their hired whores in Congress, who I would like to see ejected with all due appropriate force, November 2016. And we are going to be making a big stink about this as we get closer to the election here. Now, as you probably already heard, there was a bit of a kerfuffle along the demilitarized zone, the border between North and South Korea. And it's rather amazing. It was only a few years ago they were talking about reunification. Oh, we can't have that. And apparently over the last week, both Koreas have been shouting insults at each other over very powerful loudspeakers that can be heard on the other side of that minefield, most heavily mined area on the entire planet. You know, your mother swims after troop ships. You've got an ugly dog. And apparently somebody said something that was insulting enough where North Korea fired a shot into South Korea. They traded fire for a while. Now, apparently South Korea is saying, everybody stopped shooting, but they're very nervous and they are evacuating people who are living right next to that border, especially over toward the western part, which is where all of this stuff happened. Now, Jeremy Corbyn over in Great Britain, he is coming on strong. He is soaring in the polls. He's their equivalent of Donald Trump, coming in from the outside, a breath of fresh air to a people who are just sick and tired of politics as usual. And he's come out there with a statement which is absolutely valid. Great Britain will be safer and more secure when it stops following U.S. foreign policy, when Britain stops being the U.S. bulldog. And he's absolutely right. And the British people are responding to that. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show here. A little bit of a flashback of information. Before the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, which, by the way, that too was justified on the basis of 9/11, even though nobody from Afghanistan seems to have been anywhere near it. But by golly, we got to go into Afghanistan. Before the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, the Taliban, which, by the way, simply means students, because after the U.S. dropped its support following the ouster of the Soviet Union, the educated class formed a new government. They called themselves, we're the students, we're going to take Afghanistan forward. And they had almost entirely wiped out opium poppy production in Afghanistan. After 14 years of U.S. occupation, Afghanistan now produces 90% of all the heroin in the world. That is the real motive for invading Afghanistan. That's what's going on here. All right, we're going to take a phone call. George in Hawaii. Aloha, brah, what's up? George, are you there?
Hello, Mike.
There you are.
Mike?
Yes, you're on the air. What is on your mind?
Okay, good. I can hear you now. Listen, I was just calling about the interest rate junkies that have destroyed the stock market and basically in the midst of destroying our economy.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw the close today, but
I did.
That was down about. No, it's horrendous, Mike.
It's back in the 16,000s. That's going to be freaking everybody out.
Yeah.
Those when it crosses those barriers that end in all those zeros, everybody gets nervous.
Oh, Mike, you know the problem here is I'm not worried about the Dow. That's 30 stocks. You look at the Nasdaq, almost down 3%. Which is the broader based, well, it's not the Russell, but it's still a pretty big index and huge. There's a lot of damage going on. But the reason I called was to talk about that in its context, which is the results of all this QE2, QE3, QE27, wherever the heck we are right now, and all this money that the government's been throwing out, not to the people where it should belong in tax cuts or whatever we plan to do, but they've thrown it at Wall Street. And what Wall Street has done is they've pumped up and inflated a market, not based on fundamentals, Mike, not based on earnings or what a company's truly worth, but based on these lines that go up and down every day.
That's exactly right.
The charts. They trade off of the charts, Mike, and that is deadly.
Well, it's speculation, but this all goes back to Bill Clinton's term in office when they set up what they call the President's Special Working Group on the Markets, which is otherwise known as the Plunge Protection Team. And basically, Clinton was using the economy as his political banner that everything was great. It's the economy, stupid. The economy's really good. I got this incredible federal budget surplus, which he got by stealing the pension money of the American workers out of Social Security. And so, yeah, since then, the federal government tries to keep the stock market up because then they can point to it and say to the American people, look at the stock market. It's doing great. The economy's wonderful. If you're going hungry and if you've lost your job and your home and your business, it must be your fault. Don't dare blame the bankers and don't dare blame us. We've got this incredibly high number on the stock market to prove we're doing a wonderful job. But you're absolutely right. They've been using market manipulation, supply and demand to keep those numbers up, and the stock market is hideously overvalued, worse than it was in 1929. And when the PPT is no longer able to keep it propped up, and it finally cuts loose, the first ones out will get all their money, and everybody else is going to be left with an impressive-looking number on the bottom of their last stock report, and that's all it's going to be worth. And it will be absolutely deadly. And you're right. It's not the government itself. It's the Federal Reserve that's pouring all this money all over Wall Street. The government lets them do it because they've run out of any other options. All of this is considered loans to the American people at interest, and that's why the Treasury website stopped counting government debt about 4 months ago, to hide the fact of just how much out of control money generation is being created to pour all over Wall Street to make it look like it's still a functioning economy, but it isn't. It's a complete fraud and a sham.
Well, Mike, a company's worth what it earns.
Yes.
And that's how it pays dividends. And people have been accustomed to trading off of these charts, off of these up and down ticks daily.
Yes.
And the money's thrown at these ticks because there's no place else to throw the money. These are electronic impulses, Mike. They don't exist.
Yes.
They're phantom impulses. They're just out there. And today, what I think we're beginning to see is some of this reality that's setting in. Now, you got to remember one thing too, Mike, and this is what I've learned since I was a kid, and I'm an old man now. But the market is not a current indicator; it's a leading indicator, and it's going to tell you what's going to happen 6 months from now. That's what's actually happening right now. We have yet to see the fallout of this quantitative easing and all this relaxed money that should have been put to the people, but was put to the junkies on Wall Street and the interest rate peddlers and the influence peddlers. And we're going to see that. We're going to see it around Christmas time, when it's most important for the public to have that money and to feel confident in their country and their portfolios and their retirement. This is the leading indicator, Mike.
I understand it. And it's going to be another terrible Christmas retail season. And we know that because they're already launching the official Christmas shopping season in some of these department chains. And it's still August, guys. We're not even past my birthday yet, and already the tinsel and everything is going on up. And they're just trying to flog those last few pennies out of our pockets. We don't have it. That's where all of this manipulation breaks down. It all continues to be based on this idea that there's still vast amounts of untapped wealth out here in the American people's pockets. They just have to figure a way to game it out of us, and everything will be just fine. No, it isn't working. The system of private central banking is designed to extract all the wealth from the people, put it in the pockets of the bankers, and nobody had a plan what to do when they succeeded, and the system started to lock up.
Okay, one last comment, Mike, and I'm going to let you go real quick. We used to have Christmas in July. Remember all those wonderful sales, like you said? Not even your birthday yet, but we've had Christmas. Now we got Christmas in February. It's over.
Yes.
It's over.
Yes.
It's done.
Yeah.
And today, I think you're seeing that internal dynamic in the market that is so profound that if you don't pick up on this and start realizing that you've got to have other options, real property, maybe some silver, some gold, whatever the heck you want to do, but being in an inflated bubble like the Chinese have been in and Asia's been in and what we've been in for a long time. And like you say, this is worse than it is in 27, 28, leading up to 29. This is a serious problem. I hope people get a grip on it.
And complicating that, of course, is that you have the U.S. government has tried to weaponize the global economic system. to maintain control, to have this club over other people. We'll sanction you. We'll starve you. As long as you're dependent on the U.S. dollar, we can turn that off whenever we want. And then anybody who says, all right, I'm going to stop using the dollar, they send in the bombers and the artillery. Anyway, listen, George, I have to let you go. We're coming up. Thank you very much for the phone calls. A lot of good information there. And we're going to grab Mo in Florida real quick before our next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, thanks for taking my call. I don't know if I got time here, but I think I found out what the South Koreans were yelling over to the North Koreans. I looked it up.
Yes.
They said, we fart in your general direction.
Oh, another Monty Python fan. I love it. I love it.
Do I have time here?
You've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, just your thoughts. I know that you follow this very closely. I think today, like your previous caller knows what he's talking about, this thing's coming to a head. And like I've followed Gerald Celente, I think you know who he is,
yes.
For years. And, you know, the Fed is in a box. If they raise rates, the economy's already rolling over. That just put the kibosh.
Yeah, they're stuck. They're in a corner. That's why they're trying to get World War III going, so they got something to blame it all on when it collapses. Because they think
everything else fails, take you to war. That's what Celente says. You took the words. That's exactly right. And
that's exactly right. That's what they did the last two times. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the call, Mo. We got another caller waiting on the line. We'll be right back after these words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go ahead and grab a real quick phone call. Steve in Massachusetts. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I just want to talk to you about a book I came across on the Internet called Naked Communist. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I'm going to take a guess that it's got a publication date somewhere in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a passage where it has a communist takeover of America, 45 declared goals. Not just to say that they're communists are in America, but if you look at the excerpts that are in the 45 goals,
yeah,
you know, a lot of it, just about everything that was written in there is happening. One of them is like discredit the family as an institution, encourage promiscuity and divorce. Mm-hmm. There's another one that says discredit American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned. It goes down the line.
Well, that wasn't necessarily from the communists. Anybody who wanted to subvert the American system and turn it into a dictatorship, was following that same plan. We've certainly seen Israel follow that. We've certainly seen the statists within our own government follow that. The reason I talk about this communist subversion hysteria in the 1950s is it had us all looking in the wrong direction because our government was being subverted. We were just looking in the wrong direction. We didn't see where it was really coming from. Now, of course, we know.
Do you think the people in power are going about where they, not that they're communists, but they using some of the methods?
Well, they're definitely not communists or socialists. They're fascists. There's no question about that. And in order to have a fascist dictatorship, you have to basically strip all rights away from the people. You have to control the outcome of the elections. You have to be in control of all the mass media to propagandize them. And, of course, the fly in the ointment for their fascist dream is the independent media and the Internet, which has created a very skeptical population who's not inclined to accept anything the government or corporations are saying at face value anymore. And that's a victory right there.
Now, I wonder why that's why Obama has open borders, just to have all these people come in and ruin our culture and blend in everything where everything's just...
I think that's tied in with the goal of a global government. And we're seeing this same use of uncontrolled immigration to try and dilute a sense of national identity in populations. And I think that's what's going on here, because I can't think of any other reason why they would just let everybody come on in here, criminals, drug dealers, people carrying contagious diseases. And it is a flood, 41 million that we think are out there. And it's part of trying to blur that we're Americans. And that's also behind the attack on some of our symbols of freedom and independence and our own historical identity, like the Gadsden flag, the Confederate flag. Now they're talking about tearing down all these monuments. They're trying to erase our history as a nation and a people in order to make it easier to say we are now one planet under one government and one private central bank until the sun swallows the planet, and we can't stop that from happening anyway, but we'll have a good time between now and then.
Yeah, you noticed the bad history is being erased.
No, they're erasing all the history. I mean, and it's right. Again, George Orwell warned us all in 1984. Too bad that a lot of governments are using that as an instruction manual. Anyway, Steve, I need to let you go. We're coming up on the top of the hour news break, and I need to get through a lot of stories because we're going to have our guest in the third hour. All right, turning back to the economy, Greece for sale. Everything must go. As you know, the Greek Parliament approved the third bailout deal, which is basically privatizing the entire country. Greece has now, or at least the Parliament of Greece, has agreed to turn over control and ownership of the collective property of the people of Greece to private ownership. Ports, airports, factories, gas, oil pipelines, the public utilities are now being privatized, and they're selling off all the Greek islands left and right. Greece is basically, it's being strip mined. And that's the ultimate goal of private central banking. To get everybody using their ink and paper, loaned at interest, knowing that the debt can never be repaid, and then letting the debt grow to a situation where just by turning off the printing press, you plunge everybody into default, and then you get to come on in and say, well, you owe me all this money, which never existed in the first place, so I'm going to take the Parthenon and I'm going to put it in front of my casino in Las Vegas, and we're going to take this and we're going to take that, and we now own it all, and you are all tenants on the land that used to be yours. That's the ultimate goal of private central banking, to return the world to feudalism and serfdom. Greece is showing what their plan is. Now, Alexis Tsipras has announced his resignation. Gee, you think? And they're going to have snap elections next month for somebody to come on in and deal with the mess. And I got to tell you right now, anybody who's actually running for office in Greece right now, you have to question their sanity. Because basically it's like the cook on the Titanic, who, after the Titanic has rammed the iceberg, the captain promotes the cook to the new captain, then he heads to the lifeboats, and the cook, now captain, gets to ride the ship down, because the captain has to go down with the ship. That's what it is. Anybody who's, you got to be out of your mind to want to have any kind of a position in the Greek government at this point, with the very real possibility the people of Greece are going to do something really, really uncomfortable because of the way they got screwed. The Greek people voted to get out of debt slavery, and the government they voted in to accomplish that turned around and sold them deeper into slavery than they were before. With one exception. There's a town in Greece called Exarchia that has simply declared the Greek national government has no effect inside their borders, and they're rebuilding their economy from scratch, saying it's not our debt, it's not our problem, we're going to do that. We're seeing the emergence of local currencies all over Greece because nobody wants to deal with the euros anymore, loaned at interest, and the barter system is inefficient. So they're all creating their own local currencies. They're value-based. They are not borrowed at interest from a bank, and they're trying to break free. Let's see. New Jersey lost 13,600 jobs in July. We might add one to that real soon because we keep hearing Chris Christie's about to bow out of the presidential race. American Apparel warning it may go out of business. Apparently there were some scandals in their corporate leadership that caused severe financial harm. They've had to pull back on the number of styles they're selling. That's something we see all across America, where variety and choice are going away. You go into any mall, all the stores are selling basically the same stuff, and they got lots of that. You're not going to find what you want to buy, but there's plenty of what the retailers say you should want. Here, we don't have what you want, but here, buy this instead. Make do with it. All right, so before we get to the top of the hour news break, We're going to tease into this story here a little bit. Earlier today, a federal judge declared that former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton's unique email system did in fact violate government policy, and says the FBI has to start opening up the investigation, because right now the Obama administration is saying only the FBI has jurisdiction. Nobody else is allowed to look at this. Larry Klayman's not allowed to look at this. Judicial Watch is not allowed to look at this. We can trust the FBI to take care of this. And by that, of course, he means the FBI is going to cover up this whole mess, the way they provably covered up the murder of White House Deputy Counsel Vincent Foster back in 1994. Because that's the FBI's real job. Because if Hillary goes down, she will take Obama with her. There is no question. Because I don't think Hillary made the decision herself to send those weapons to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. And I don't think she's going to take the fall for that. She's going to turn around and say, the president ordered me to give weapons to these scary people that you were all told were our enemies, and that you had to give your money and the lives of your children to make war on these people we've actually been spending your tax dollars giving weapons to. You get 300 million Americans aware of that duplicity. It's going to be difficult. All right, we're going to take a break for the news. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 877-300-7645. And before we get back to the news here, we just got a confirmation. Dr. David Duke will be our third-hour radio guest next Tuesday to talk about the aftermath of his recent appearance on the Alex Jones Show. And some of it is actually quite funny. But Duke will be with us Tuesday, and so make a point of dropping in. That's going to be a real barn burner. Okay, now getting on back to Hillary's email problems. And we are getting confirmation that, yes, indeed, the server that was surrendered to the FBI was deliberately wiped. Not just deleted, but the disk was overwritten with garbage noise to make sure nothing could be recovered. We know that the BlackBerries from her aides were destroyed. Sure sounds like a cover-up to me here. And Hillary, of course, is saying, well, I have no idea, what's going on with this stuff here. I'm absolutely clueless about high technology digital stuff. I'm a complete dummy, which is why you should vote for me, because I'm just a woman, Now, the Hillary Clinton campaign has had to finally acknowledge that, yes, there was classified information on her private server. The excuse is, it wasn't classified when we got it. It just happened afterwards, and I'm just an innocent victim of the bureaucracy taking too long to classify some of this stuff. Okay, that's not going to pass. This is a problem for Hillary. Anybody who understands how information is processed through the government, classified information, it is a very carefully thought out process. When information becomes classified, those people known to be officially in possession of that information are notified of the change in status. So either Hillary ignored the change of status, or she had copies of classified information outside the normal channels of communication. Okay? Now, there's another point we need to keep in mind. Much, if not most, of the information the Secretary of State deals with is, in fact, classified. Now, when Hillary set up her private server, there is no way she could assume that there would never, ever be any classified information not coming into it. So weak security, no encryption, set up by a company not cleared by DSS, both the management and the company itself in serious legal trouble? Doesn't sound like somebody who's taking proper care of a private server on which there is more than likely going to be classified information. And while Hillary is trying to duck the scandal by saying that information was not classified when she received it, which I'm not buying that 1 second, it certainly was classified when it was deleted by Hillary's personnel who don't have the necessary security clearances to destroy classified information. Because you have to have a security clearance not only to create this information and view it, but to manage it in any way. So whoever Hillary had wipe her server didn't have the necessary government security clearances. That's a violation of the law right there. That right there puts her in the same situation as Petraeus, the mishandling of classified information. Now, as I said before, much, if not most of the information a Secretary of State will be dealing with in the performance of his or her duty is going to be classified. So, Ms. Hillary, if you did not use your private email server to handle classified information, what server did you use? Because you certainly didn't use any secure servers provided by the U.S. government. All right? That's the final logic flaw in her cover story. Her job involves classified information. If it wasn't going through her private server, where did it go through? The Ashley Madison website had better security than Hillary's email. They were using encryption. And they still got broken into. Now, apparently on Michael Savage's show, he got a bunch of calls from security professionals saying that this claim by Hillary of how the classified information came to be on her server doesn't pass muster. They're saying certainly in the case of some of that information, it's not permitted to send it by email. It has to be put on a thumb drive. And so now there's a whole new can of worms on just how this classified information did get onto her server. And basically, if any of it was put on a thumb drive, I mean, just putting it on a thumb drive and giving it to David Kendall, who does not have a security clearance, is mishandling of classified information. Now, there's something that happened a long time ago I think it's time that we remind you all of. And it's in the Epic of Clinton mess, and it has to do with a huge scandal that while Bill Clinton was president, he kept approving transfers of high technology to China, some of which had military application. And Clinton wrote a letter to Congress saying, absolutely, this transfer will not harm our national security or improve China's military capability in space. But the technology did, and it eventually came out, was discovered by Judicial Watch, that as this technology transfer was going on, the Clintons were being handed huge campaign donations funneled in through people like John Huang, who eventually pleaded guilty to campaign finance violations. They were selling secrets all the way back then. So, here's a theory. It's just a theory, but it's something to think about. What if Hillary's intentionally weak server was a delivery system for more sold secrets by the Clintons? Secrets go out from the server. We don't know how the stuff got out. Donations pour into the Clinton Foundation. It's certainly a far better system than having to go on out and tape packages of documents underneath a bridge like Robert Hansen did. The Clintons have a past history of making money selling U.S. secrets to other governments. Hillary's server may have been more of the same thing. And that may be the reason they were so absolute in a panic to stop Larry Klayman's lawsuit down in Florida before somebody started looking at technology transfers or information that somehow magically got into foreign hands, and those same foreign hands pouring money back into the Clinton Foundation. Hillary Clinton's more recent press conferences, you can tell she knows she's in trouble. Heilemann was out there talking about her latest press conference, calling her sarcastic, defensive, and evasive. And by the way, you know the video of her making that Snapchat joke that's been all over the TV showing how she takes this lightly and it's all silly. And you can tell how strange she is. It's not an off-the-cuff remark. It was prepared. And there's laughter and the cheering in the background. People who were actually there say nobody laughed. They added a laugh track to try and sell this idea that everybody's just taking this lightly and you shouldn't either. So it's getting out there, and people are looking at this, and Hillary's trying to defend it as if she's a lawyer, but she's not a lawyer in this case. She's a candidate for President of the United States of America. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. We got 2 calls waiting. I'm going to get to you as soon as we come right back. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show. Now, Richard Nixon is famous for a quote. We've mentioned it before, but we're going to mention it again, where Nixon said, "It isn't the crime that gets you, it's the cover-up." And the cover-up may keep you out of jail, but again, politics is perception, and that's where everybody is starting to say, okay, delete, not just deleted, wiped the hard drives on these computers before cooperating by turning them over to the FBI. Basically, she sent over an empty box. That's what she sent over. I'm cooperating. Apparently, on CNN earlier today, a Clinton spokeswoman, Jennifer Palmieri, was being asked, okay, why was this wiped before it was given to the FBI? They can't come up with a good cover story. Because all of the emails are technically the property of the American people. We don't know what was deleted. We're supposed to just take Hillary's word that it was just personal stuff. But it looks like there's a cover-up, and the people are seeing that. And apparently this Palmieri did not come across very well, just described as stumbling and mumbling. They can't explain it. They can't come up with a reason why it's perfectly reasonable after having this violation of government policy server that wasn't vetted by DSS, was set up by a company where both one of the senior managers and the company itself are in serious legal trouble. It's nonsense. And, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to take this phone call. I'm going to come back to this in just a bit. Clint in Las Vegas. Aloha, Clint. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Actually, you're hitting it right on the head of everything I was going to call about. I think this is, I was watching this spokes lady too that you were just talking about, and she's just bumbling. She's just bumbling along. These people are scared.
They have a right to be. They have a right to be.
We're not beyond destruction of evidence.
Yeah. We're not letting go of this one. We absolutely are not.
And not only that one email that was marked top secret, special intelligence, talent keyhole, no from, and Bob Barr, you posted the video the other day on there, and this is as high as it gets. Any intelligent person wouldn't want it within 100 miles of them, unless it was, properly handled. You would not want to mishandle this file.
No, you wouldn't. And again, there's a question whether data that's classified at this level is even sent through an open email system, because we're not talking about just the security of Hillary's own server, but the fact that the Internet as a whole, the possibility of man-in-the-middle attacks, it's certainly there. Especially with all of the stuff going through this company in Colorado that had their servers in the bathroom closet. This thing was wide open. There's that hacker in Europe, Gucci something he calls himself, got into the server and gave some of the emails he got to Russia Today, which published them. So there is no question. Hillary's server was gotten into, and it was apparently trivial to do so. It was just wide open. So this top secret, special compartmentalized information, keyhole, which means it's satellite data, and no foreign. These experts who were calling into Mike Savage's show were saying this stuff doesn't get sent over the open Internet. It's handled direct on, flash drives and such. So this thing's just getting ugly.
Yeah, it's, I think, if I was a prosecutor, I'd be going at the, espionage angle of it.
I would too, and I'll tell you why they're not going to. Because remember what I said before, there are secrets that are small that you use to go after your competition, and there are secrets that are so huge that they would bring down the entire government. And even Hillary Clinton's worst enemies are going to be working to try and keep the lid on some of the aspects of this case, in particular what happened at Benghazi, just where all this secure information went, the gun running into Syria. They're gonna try and keep the lid on all. They're gonna try and find a distraction, a stained blue dress, or they're already bandying around. Oh, the emails were just about Hillary's lesbian love affairs with her two assistants, and they're playing every game that they can to try and keep the lid on this.
Can I ask one other angle?
Sure.
Maybe a different. But then again, at the same time, she's making some powerful enemies right now.
They've been doing that throughout their entire career. Whoops, I'm sorry, we lost the connection there. Yeah, the Clintons have made a lot of enemies. They weren't able to kill them all off, and I'm one of them. And that's just the way it is. All right, one more call, and then I got to get back to this. Joe in California, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. My question was, if Hillary went into the White House before and ended up dead broke, why would you want to go back?
That's a very good question. But, of course, we know the answer is the Clintons were not, in fact, dead broke because they faked the presidential blind trust when Bill Clinton became president. That's what Vince Foster was murdered over. He didn't want to sign his name to trust declarations he knew to be fraudulent because that meant jail time for him if it came out. And he was going to resign. And that would have brought more public attention to the already 6 months overdue trust declarations. So he got really depressed and committed suicide, and the trust declarations were completed 3 days later by an unknown party, who I suspect has the first initial H.
Well, I know that when they found the destroyed computers from the World Trade Center Building 7,
yes,
they sent them to Germany and they rechecked the hard drives and found insider trading and stuff like that, even after the stuff was damaged.
Yeah, but you see, what we're dealing with here in the case of Hillary's server is an overt act of overwriting the disks with random noise so that nothing can be recovered. And it's that overt act of going beyond mere deletion, the overt act of wiping the disks that just tells everybody this is a cover-up.
Well, if I'm trying to formulate my thoughts where it sounds correct. If Hillary lied before, why would anyone trust her again?
Nobody does. The poll numbers show it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, you got it. Yeah, this is it. This is the first mess that the Clintons have got into where they're not going to be able to just bluff and bluster and arrogant their way out of it. And you can tell on Hillary's face. You know, she knows she's in serious trouble. And what are they doing? Oh, it's somebody else's fault. The enemies are trying to get us. It's partisan bickering. It's the vast right-wing conspiracy. And now Hillary's turning on Obama, or Hillary's people are turning on Obama. More about that when we come back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And in typical Hillary Clinton pattern, she's already looking for somebody else to blame. It's not my fault. My enemies are out to get me. It's the vast right-wing conspiracy. It's partisanship. And there was an article that came out in the Washington Times, no less, why Obama is torpedoing Hillary Clinton. See, it's all his fault. He wants to have a presidential successor who will preserve his legacy, and he's afraid of being upstaged by a mere woman. Whatever else they're putting on out there. Okay, now they're out there putting the blame. This is Obama being dirty pool. Now, Obama is not torpedoing Hillary. He has the FBI working on the case, and the Obama administration has been criticized for saying nobody else can look at what's going on. No other lawsuits, no other agencies, not even the intelligence agencies whose classified information was involved on this. No, the FBI will take care of it. The same way the FBI took care of the murder of White House Deputy Counsel Vincent Foster. And it all comes down to the fact that we now know Hillary Rodham Clinton, as Secretary of State, sent weapons from Libya to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria to use against Bashar al-Assad. I do not think for 1 second Hillary took that step on her own, because technically it's treason to give aid and comfort to a declared enemy during a declared time of war. If Hillary did that, she got instructions from her boss. And her boss is not going to want that to come out. If Hillary goes down on this, Obama's going to go down with her. And that's what makes this so intense. All right, we're going to grab ourselves a phone call. Damien in New York, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I'm going to jump back on that topic. Did you see that the Dow plummeted 358 points? You just saw that already?
Yes, it's a good thing they can't open up those windows on those Wall Street buildings, or it'd be raining stockbrokers right now.
But they go up to the roof anyway.
I think they locked those. Anyway, go ahead.
Did you see the Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania poll where they asked people if they had to vote today, and that they were Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, and then there was one Clinton or Rubio, and then they asked about her trust. So basically, she lost every one of those. In Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, she lost against Bush, and then she lost against Rubio, and then they asked those states also if they thought that she was honest and trustworthy or not, and her numbers were 32% to 64 in Florida, 34 to 60 in Ohio, and 32 to 63 in Pennsylvania. So, people are,
and we have another whole year to keep pounding on her one after the other. I love it. It's almost, it's starting to almost feel like a caged hunt, and I'm starting to have, I'm not going to feel sorry for her because she deserves it, but it's starting to feel like a caged hunt. She's in a cage, and we get to sit out there and fling stuff at her. What's really interesting is Biden is now polling ahead of Hillary Clinton, and he's not even officially in the race yet.
I know. I can't believe that. I cannot believe that, where he's getting, 5, 10, 15% in some places where he's not even, like you say, he's not
officially a candidate yet here. And, Bernie Sanders has closed the gap on her. I mean, Hillary's been talking about her high poll numbers because up until now she's been the only presumed candidate. It's always easy to be leading in the Democratic polls if you're the only one who's really out there. But now that some other people are starting to step on in, I mean, they're even talking about bringing back Mr. Global Warming himself. And,
I know.
The writing is on the wall.
Hillary's supporters, her supporters just continue to try to use the same excuses, though. That's old news. Before you even start an argument, before you even have a conversation about what you're talking about, as soon as you start to say, there's all this history of this and that and everything, the first thing they'll say is old news. They won't say, they'll say, oh, those articles are old. They've been refuted. They've been rebutted.
They just say it's old news. That was all settled. That's the buzzword. It's all settled. It's all taken care of. Like, we should never go back and look at any of that. And, of course, that is not realistic. And, it is. I mean, we're looking at massive corruption. And, I was talking before, this company that ran her server, the reason I think there's an espionage angle to this, the company that ran her server, one of their managers got into legal trouble over fraud and a Ponzi scheme. The company itself is currently in legal trouble because they were stealing classified government telephone numbers. They actually apparently tried to cut into the lines and wrecked a bunch of phone lines in Washington, D.C., caused a serious communications disruption. There's no reason for an ISP to be cutting into these phone lines. Nobody uses modems anymore. Okay, we're all on broadband. And so I think this was an espionage operation, and that's the big, ugly secret that everybody's going to try and keep a lid on.
I agree with you there. And the fact that, like you said, they weren't vetted properly, they weren't investigated properly before they were hired, that by itself is suspect.
Yeah, Hillary violated her own husband's presidential order. executive order saying that all outside companies with that are going to be exposed to classified information have to be vetted by the DSS, and Hillary did not do that. And just scratching your head, you have to wonder why Hillary in New York had to go all the way to Colorado for a company to put her server together. I happen to have been in New York not too long ago, and there are people there who can make very good server systems. And so why all the way out to Colorado?
It's a big state, too. It's not just New York City. It's a very big state. And she did a pretty good job of the people upstate. She did a really good job of screwing the farmers over and the agricultural community.
Well, not to mention the guy who, not to mention screwing over the guy who wanted her Senate seat. Remember John F. Kennedy Jr.? And he was going to announce that he was also running for that seat, and he would have won on name value. And then all of a sudden he had a terrible plane accident, and the issue of Newsweek that carried his announcement that he was going to throw his hat in the ring was recalled from the newsstands. Not canceled. They literally told the trucks, turn around, bring them back, we got to destroy them.
Crazy.
Amazing.
This is kind of trivial, but she claimed that her father attended a college on football scholarship, and now that's being contradicted by the university that is even true. So they're trying to say that's not, because she's trying to say, oh, we're regular people, we were poor. Look, my father, he wouldn't have even been able to pay for school unless he got a scholarship and all this, but that's actually not even true. They're saying now.
Well, I mean, she loves to lie. Hillary's going around telling people that she was named for Sir Edmund Hillary, the guy who climbed Mount Everest, except that she was born 6 years before Hillary crested Mount Everest. So she just makes stuff up. This is the way she is. Remember what I used to say? They lie all the time. They never tell the truth because they're afraid you might learn how to tell the difference.
Right. And she doesn't have a sincere position, a sincere, passionate position. She rolls with the tide. So that interview with whatever they want to hear.
That video with the Black Lives Matter shows that. Oh yes, I'm absolutely in agreement. America's a racist nation, and blah 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 blah.
Right, and her administration, they knew beforehand. She put them in a separate room. Everything was tailor-made. She made everything come out the way exactly the way she wanted to. They didn't do what they did to Bernie Sanders. They gave her the time. They gave her the forethought, the awareness beforehand, so that she could craft everything and make herself look exactly the way she wanted to.
I think the Black Lives Matter. I think the Black Lives Matter movement is working for Hillary Clinton as an attack dog on her competition. And again, go back and study all the dirty tricks that Richard Nixon's creep did. And imagine 10 times worse, that's what we're witnessing right now. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're coming up here on a commercial break. When we come on back, there's another scandal erupting. One of Hillary Clinton's close aides seems to be conflict of interest or outright bribery going on. We're going to talk about that when we come back from these words from our sponsors. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Now, getting on back to Clinton's close friend and aide, Huma Abedin, who is married to Anthony Sexting Weiner. Abedin supposedly had a full-time job at the State Department, but was also getting paychecks from two private corporations. One was a consulting firm called Teneo, run by one of Bill Clinton's former aides, and the other job was with the Clinton Foundation. Now, this screams conflict of interest. And apparently she had enough time left over to try and start her own company. Now, as the caller pointed out, the poll numbers are coming in. They're turning against Hillary. And Trump is still gaining. More and more the corporate media is acknowledging this guy is real. He could actually pull it off. And, of course, now we have Biden, who's doing better than Hillary in the polls, and he's not even officially a candidate. Now, down in Mobile, demand for tickets for Donald Trump's upcoming event were so great, they've had to change the venue to a 40,000-seat football stadium. Remember when Hillary had that little speech up in Iowa and it turned out it was in a bicycle shop and there was nobody there but her and the camera crew? Trump is drawing crowds the way Bernie Sanders has been and Ron Paul did. Now, getting on to the situation with immigration, Zuckerberg over at his company is demanding the government increase the number of H-1B visas because he can't find anybody coming out of Common Core who knows how to run high technology. He needs to bring in all these people from Asia where they have real educational systems. And Trump is saying that if he becomes president, he is going to impose serious financial penalties on companies that hire foreign workers under the H-1B program, saying if you really need them, that's fine, but you're going to have to pick up some additional costs here so that we can take care of the American people who are not getting these jobs. Now, the illegal immigration continues to be a big, big issue. A lot of people are still trying to criticize him. But it turns out right now, with 41 million illegal immigrants inside the United States of America, they are giving birth to 400,000 every year who are given automatic censorship under what turns out to be a rather flawed interpretation of the 14th Amendment. And we put up this article, and it's from a website called 14thamendment.us. And it's talking about the documents that led to the creation of the 14th Amendment. Remember the other day I was saying, back when the 14th Amendment was created, there wasn't an illegal immigrant problem. Nobody ever thought there was going to be. They were expanding into the West. Immigrants who could work and obey the laws were welcome. There wasn't a big system. It simply didn't exist. But documents from Senator Jacob Howard in 1866 spell out the intention of the 14th Amendment, which was to grant citizenship to all of the recently freed slaves. It didn't even extend to the Native Americans. They got their citizenship a little bit later. But it specifically did not grant citizenship to children born of foreign citizens, even on U.S. soil, because the foreign governments were presumed to still have jurisdiction over them. That was reaffirmed by Senator Edward Cohen, who said a foreigner in the United States has a right of the protection of the American laws, but he is not a citizen in the ordinary acceptance of the word. There were apparently several Supreme Court decisions on this, saying that the 14th Amendment does not grant citizenship to children born of foreign nationals on U.S. soil. It just isn't what was supposed to be. So, under the original intent of the 14th Amendment, foreigners cannot sneak across the border illegally, pop out a baby, and then say, see, the baby's a citizen, you got to let us stay. Trump doesn't need to change the Constitution, he just needs to enforce it and stop the weasel wording. By the way, I got an email from somebody who points out that the White House website has miswritten the 14th Amendment and its interpretation compared to the original documents that surrounded its creation. And you know what's really weird? This is the same government that is passing new laws saying that the U.S. government can revoke or suspend your passport whenever they feel like it. They could suspend your passport if the government decides you've aided an organization that is declared to be terrorist. And there's no definition of what aided is. In reporting on the truth about what's going on in this country, I'm sure they could say, oh, you're aiding the terrorists and the enemies of the United States by pointing out where we're breaking the law and lying and cheating and stealing. And they could take my passport away. At the same time, the Mexicans and the Central Americans are flooding across that border. The government isn't interested in finding real criminals or terrorists. They're just watching people who don't believe as they're told to be. Would you believe the FBI kept a file on George Carlin solely because he made jokes about the government? You're not allowed to make jokes about the government. That's not the way it works. Over on my COINTELPRO page, I have a separate article about all the people the FBI spied on, not because they were engaged in crimes, but because they were public figures who didn't always toe the propaganda line. Anyway. Now here's a story that came out of Breitbart, and this sort of nails what's going on here. There's a lot of money involved in this. Apparently, wealthy foreigners want to come to this country and have a baby to make them citizens. And there's a huge business that helps them do that. And they're charging as much as $99,000 to set it up for the pregnant woman to come into the United States on a visitor's visa, pop out the baby, have the baby made a citizen. And this article is saying if you just go to Google and type in birth in the USA, they get 19,000 hits on companies that will assist wealthy foreigners on getting into the country and having an American child, based on this misinterpretation of the intention of the 14th Amendment. Story coming out of Breitbart again. Joint British-French border force to be deployed to Calais to confront the migrant crisis. There wouldn't be a migrant crisis if the Western nations hadn't been mucking about in the Middle East and Africa. This is all a fallout. And again, I think a reason for all this open border policy is to flood nations with people who are not of that nation in order to dilute and blur a sense of a national identity. Because having a national sense of identity is contrary to the wishes of the globalists and the New World Order. They don't want the next generation to be able to say, I'm an American. They want the next generation to say, I'm not even sure what American means anymore. And that's behind this attack on all the symbols of our history as a nation and a people, whether it's the Gadsden flag, the Confederate flag, various monuments and memorials. They're trying to just erase our memory, our history of who we are and how we got here, to turn us into moldable clay to fuel the New World Order. Jeb Bush has gone on the attack against Donald Trump, saying he's not a proven conservative. He has un-American policies. How dare that Trump? He's got un-American policies like peace, prosperity, the Bill of Rights, especially that Fourth Amendment, Jeb. Those are apparently now un-American policies, contrary to the conservatives, or at least certainly the neoconservatives. Us paleo-conservatives, we're still kind of on board with all of that stuff. Constitution, Bill of Rights, which according to that sheriff out in California makes me the moral equivalent of ISIS to be supporting the Constitution. It's really getting kind of weird. And Jeb Bush has reiterated his call for full-scale, constant NSA surveillance of all Americans in this country. Which reminds me, why don't they have all of Hillary's emails? If they're that good at what they're doing. That's what I want to know. All righty, we're coming up on our top of the hour news break. When we come on back, we're going to be talking with Miriam Azizi about conditions inside Israel. It's kind of gritty over there. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 877-300-7645. And joining us on Skype now is Miriam Azizi, who is an activist in the area of family law over in Israel. And Miriam, what's going on right now?
Hi, Michael. Nice to speak to you. It's been about 3 or 4 months, hasn't it?
It has been a while.
It has. Last time I spoke to you, I'd just come out of the Ethiopian riots with the tear gas that no one said happened, but we videoed. And since I last saw you, all sorts of things have been happening, Michael. Motti Label, the journalist I spoke with you with, was arrested and imprisoned twice. Once for speaking out and the second time for just getting out of his car. Unbelievably. So I popped off to Geneva and asked for UN protection for him, which currently is sort of there. And he's impoverished, unemployed, penniless, and gagged. So all's going well for human rights journalists in Israel, isn't it?
Yeah, well, pretty much anywhere around the world. You know, that's the model of the government. Anybody who's not going along with the government, we need them broke, penniless, and silenced, and helpless. And only then will justice prevail.
Absolutely. So I'm now broke, penniless, and a journalist.
Join the club.
I've surrendered this. I surrendered I actually saw things that would leave you sleepless for the rest of your life for 9 weeks in Israel. I was prepared for it, but it was worse than I thought. 10,000 children are taken by the welfare. 70% of them are in private institutions and abused. And it's now got to the state where even the Ministry of Welfare are saying, ooh, we have a problem. Not that they'll do anything, but they've had to recognize it because we pushed every censored story outside and got pressure for that to happen. So I came home very distressed and decided, put your money where your mouth is, or lack of money. I surrendered my home. I gave every possession I owned to charity. I have a suitcase in my hand, and in a week, I'm traveling to Israel, and I'm going to walk 50 to 70 miles from Haifa to Tel Aviv to bring world awareness to the child protection services worldwide, because Israel is the world leader in kidnapping kids, so best place to start, isn't it, really?
Absolutely here, and what we're seeing both in Israel and certainly here in the United States, all of these so-called child welfare support agencies, it's all driven by money. The more they can take children away from families, the bigger their budgets become. And especially in these hard economic times, these agencies are all trying to justify the continuance of their budget. And they can't very well stand up and say, hey, there's really not much of a problem with child abuse or endangerment, or they're out of a job. And so, like people who were paid to find witches during the Middle Ages, they're going to find witches or child abuse everywhere they look because they're basically paid to come up with these problems.
Michael, we have evidence, which I'm going to collect, of social workers collecting commission. We know that the institutions are collecting $5,000 a month per child, 10,000. We know the hunting season is September because that's when all the kids go back to school. And we managed to campaign on a super injunction for a 5-year-old child who was removed from school for kicking a chair, and evidence from the social workers on video said, nothing wrong with the kid at home, we just can't tolerate that behaviour at school. Now, only because we got that out, after 70 days of being drugged and medicated and us providing legal help, did that child get returned to his mother. One child. We saved 35 children in 2 months that we were there. Problem is, 33 a day are being taken. Now, today, sadly, another father committed suicide. One a day, more than one a day. So I thought, you know what? I have nothing to lose. They're going to kill me anyway. They're going to kill all of us. You're dead once. So I'm going to go and I'm going to walk for the children of the world in September for 12 straight days in 45 degrees. Why not? You know, I just want everybody who has a problem with families worldwide to support the idea that we need our families without government, you know?
Well, government's always going to expand its power and authority and intrusiveness. I mean, we're seeing that with, bans on GMO, mandatory vaccines, because they have to have more power and authority to justify taking more in tax money. And it does, after a while, become a cancer on a society. And the reason I like having you on my show is twofold. First of all, because we have similar problems here in the United States. It's not unique to the United States. It's an aspect of bureaucracy. And second, because it's important to understand when we talk about Israel and what's going on in the world, we always put the focus on the government of Israel and not the Israeli people. And your stories are basically illustrating the people of Israel are just as abused by the government of Israel as Americans are being abused by their state and federal government here in the United States of America. And it's all about maintaining authority. It's all about maintaining budgets. Money is just driving all of it, and actual concerns about what is best for the child and the family, they're just not a factor. If you can't make money off of a happy, well-adjusted family, then you've got to find some way to make it unadjusted, or at least look like it's unadjusted, in order to intervene. And again, there's a bounty. I heard you use the phrase a hunting season, and that really does seem to be the mindset.
Do you know, Michael, what really upsets me is that the politics of Israel, which is all smokescreened by the Palestinian issue, is great. That's what everybody talks about, the right to exist, blah, blah, blah. However, behind the smokescreen, Israel are number one in the world per capita for the abuse that they take on fathers, mothers, and children. Number one in the world. The people have nowhere to turn. They have no faith. I'll walk that 70 miles by myself, and I will finish it, 12 days later, by myself. It's a police state. It's a communist state. The Russians yearn for Stalin there. I have no hope whatsoever that the Israeli people will do one thing about this, But I do know that Israel has to lead the world in saying, we're not the chosen people, we're the world's worst at this. So where better to start this than there?
Well, they're never going to admit that, but I think the issue here, again, we know that the government of Israel is very corrupt. I mean, they've even tried to put some of their presidents on trial. At least they've got a little more courage on that regard than the United States. But I'll tell you what I'd like you to do. I'm going to presume that you're going to have some kind of an electronic device with you. And as you start your walk next month, I want you to send me pictures every day. I'm going to put up a permanent page at my website where we can basically follow Miriam Azizi in her walk for the children across Israel, and we'll just try and generate as much publicity as we can.
Children of the world.
Children of the world.
American children. We have 1,000 people going to march in London on the same last day as we will for abused children in the UK. We already have the UK joined with us. We're just asking people to say, I support this. I'm hurting. Do you know what, Michael? I was banned from an American Fathers page last night because Jewish American fathers were offended that I should talk about what's going on in Israel. Can you believe that? I was banned from a page supporting fathers and children on a Facebook page because I quoted the Israelis.
When it comes to Facebook, we know that has a very heavy built-in bias in favor of Israel. But if you come to the ordinary American population, including the Jewish Americans, they're getting pretty much fed up with what's going on there in Israel. And again, we're talking about the people of Israel, who the vast majority of them are Jewish, and they're being abused by their government, which just puts to the lie this idea that the Jewish state exists for the safety and protection of the Jewish people. They're being abused and harvested and made money from, just like any other population underneath any other corrupt government anywhere on earth. Now, Miriam, we got to take a 4-minute break for commercial, and then we're going to come on back, and I want to hear more about what you're doing. And maybe you need to set up your own Facebook page for this. We'll be right back.
Got one.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Miriam Azizi, who is basically just thrown caution to the wind and is going to Israel to do a walk of protest over the way Israeli family law is treating children and parents. It is a huge scandal. If it's even possible to consider, the abuses against families in Israel by the government of Israel are worse than what we are seeing here in the United States of America, and it's all for the same reason. Got to keep the budgets up, got to keep control, got to, insert government into every aspect of life. Now, Miriam does have a Facebook page. It's titled Walk for Kids, 4 is a numeral, September 2015. We just put a link to it from WhatReallyHappened.com. We're going to keep it prominently on display. In fact, Miriam, I think I'm going to go ahead and just make a banner ad so it's permanently there until the walk is over. So what else is going on that you can share with us?
Wow, what's going on? Okay, we have a whistleblower over in Israel who 12 years ago with 15 people working in the tax office signed a letter to declare that they'd had enough of the corruption. He's been homeless for 12 years. He's been arrested 150 times, Michael.
Yes.
He's been beaten and tortured for his whistleblowing. And 12 years later, some of those people are now starting to go down for the corruption. Not for the corruption they named, but for lesser corruption. Good enough. However, he has details of corruption at the highest levels, and I won't say too much, but we don't need to imagine, of the Knesset, even to the number 1 position, which he's still holding. And he is taking people down after 12 to 15 years, one by one. Cops, lawyers, you name it, they're going down. So as all the previous prime ministers and presidents will go, it is likely that the new presidents and prime ministers may well go with them.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they're trying to start all these wars here, because during wartime, the rules change, and it doesn't matter how corrupt the leader is. We're in a war, and we've got to support our leaders. We've had American presidents who did that, who were facing huge...
They do indict them there, but it takes a long time, and you need to be very brave, and you need to take an awful lot of torture to keep standing up. Now, you've spoken with Mossy.
Yes.
He was on a radio show recently. They have all but broken him in the last 3 to 6 months. He has 5 restraining orders on 5 cities and 1 district of 50-mile radius for speaking out against social workers, which is his legal right to. And he has about 7 pending cases just for murmuring that he might want to object. And the Attorney General of Israel actually has a 300-page case against him for me asking for his defense in the UN to protect his right to be alive.
Well,
and he's currently facing charges for that.
Well,
outside.
Look at how Israel is going after Palestine for daring to file charges against them at the International Criminal Court. I mean, there seems to be a cultural idea that Israelis don't get prosecuted no matter what they actually do. I mean, and that attitude seems to infect not only Israel's foreign policy but their domestic policy as well.
Well, there were a bunch of people only last week who ended a 10-day hunger strike outside Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem and were taken away and arrested and melted down for a hunger strike against family laws because their children were stolen. You didn't see that in the news.
No, you don't. You don't see that in the Western media at all.
You don't. You don't see in the news a woman who went on hunger strike for 5 days who was arrested, detained, and had a restraining order. You don't see Motty Label getting out of a car to light a candle for this woman who was arrested by 45 police officers for locking his car. This is what's going on in Israel. This is what we're trying to get out. And fortunately for me, they haven't touched me yet, but they will. I mean, when I get there, they will. So I'm hoping for publicity for to keep me alive, to keep Motty alive, and to hope that the Americans know Israel is 12 times worse than America for this.
Yes.
So we're better to start this walk. So I have surrendered my home, my possessions, all gone to charity. My sister's dying in a couple of months of cancer, so all my possessions went to cancer care. And I literally have thrown my life to the wind and put my, life in the hands of whatever, and I'm going to walk. And if they kill me, they kill me. What can I do?
Well, it's an amazing commitment on your part, and we're going to just make sure that everybody coming to What Really Happened is going to see that link that goes to your Facebook page, which I presume you're going to be posting updates to during your entire walk.
Every single day we'll post updates. We have people hopefully watching it as a video showcase, and all we want is selfies, pictures, a 100-mile walk, a 5-minute walk, sit on your sofa, but support it. Send us pictures and say, my kids have been stolen. I'll post you a picture. We just want the world to know that Israel is not the sacred cow. It's just as bad as everywhere else. It's a normal place. It's not special. It's just a country.
And not a particularly likable one either. And again, the reason I wanted to have you on this show is this idea that, people lump Israel together, the Israeli people and the Israeli government shouldn't do that. The problems are coming out of Israel's government, and the Israeli people are suffering.
$4.5 billion of your taxes are paying either for children to die or the Iron Dome to protect them, depending on your views. The kids that are sitting in institutions don't have a clue about the politics. All they know is that there are $4.5 billion going into that country that doesn't touch them. So let the American people decide, do they want to kill them or save them? I have no politics about this. A child doesn't deserve that.
Well, it's not about politics. It's about an attitude, whether it's the government of Israel, the government of the United States, the government of the states, or even, these religiously operated institutions that are guilty of this horrible abuse, where children are simply treated as property or assets in some kind of a financial game here. And the nadir, of course, is what we're seeing coming out of Planned Parenthood, where human beings are of a young age are just being turned into objects and inventory.
Absolutely.
And it is horrible.
Absolutely. We've got London joining us. Please find some Americans to join with us who have problems with welfare, with CPS, and just say, we're with you. Because this is not political. This is family orientated. So please ask your audience, just, join the page, post the pictures and say, we're with you. That's all we want. For the world to say, get out of my life, government. I have a right to be a dad. or a mum or a kid.
Absolutely.
That's it, nothing more.
All right. Well, listen, Miriam, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're hitting a commercial break, and I'm going to have to go and cover some other stories. But I am going to do that permanent link to your Facebook page. Please keep me updated. Please keep me updated on what's... All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to be right back after these commercials. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to our show here. And that was Miriam Azizi, and huge commitment has basically just going to Israel, going to march for the rights of parents and children. And that's an issue not just in Israel, but here in the United States, more and more. Parents are being told, you have no right over your children. Your child is the property of the government. We will decide what they eat in their school lunches. We will decide what medications they're forced to take. You're not allowed to teach your children anything. We will take care of it through Common Core. That's how intrusive and tyrannical it's getting. And I'm very alarmed at how much the United States of America is starting to look just like Israel, including all these American police who've been trained by Israeli companies to treat the American citizens the way the IDF treats the Palestinians. They don't like it, neither do we. Now, getting on back to the email scandal, apparently Hillary's spokespeople are trying a new tack. They're trying to equate the email scandal with Deflategate. That's not all that. It's on the same level as Deflategate. So the football was soft. So the server had classified information. They're trying as hard as they can to make it go away. Not going to happen. Definitely not going to happen. Rand Paul has just introduced a bill in Congress to defend Israel by defunding Palestinian foreign aid. By golly, we're going to keep those Palestinians from going up to the International Criminal Court. How dare they do that? Rand, little reminder, you're a politician, legislator here. You're a senator of the United States of America. Your job is here, okay? Not Israel. But apparently Bland Paul is out there saying, don't you understand? You're not allowed to take Israel to court no matter what they do. Israel's above the law. Israel told me so. They wrote it right on the back of that huge campaign donation check, and I believe them. By the way, today is Ron Paul's 80th birthday, so happy birthday to Ron Paul. Meanwhile, Mike Huckabee is still over there in Israel collecting all kinds of money to come back and try and be the president. And he's reiterating again, the West Bank isn't occupied. How dare you say it's occupied? It's really part of Israel. I don't know about you. I am sick and tired of all these American politicians just falling all over themselves to prove that they can kiss Israel's butt deeper, harder, and wetter with a little tongue action than anybody else who's in politics right now. I'm a little fed up with that. It's humiliating. All right, apparently there's been another police shooting. Police in St. Louis shot and killed an 18-year-old and then sent the SWAT teams against the demonstrators. That right there, I think, is a police state on full display for everybody. Now, here's a real surprise. The African American rights activists who are talking about the police brutality are now coming out in open support of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel, precisely because they're saying living under the current American police is just like living in Palestine under Israeli rule. And here's where having those Israeli companies train the American police to treat Americans the way the IDF treats the Palestinians comes back to haunt everybody. Because they're seeing the connection, and they don't like it. Now then, let's talk about this whole Ashley Madison fiasco, okay, where hackers got in, they broke into this Ashley Madison website, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, this Ashley Madison website was set up as a dating, if you will, service for married people to go on out and have affairs. In fact, their trademark line is, life is short, have an affair, huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. And they got huge numbers of people in there. The database got taken apart. It's been posted by hackers. And we're finding all these people in government that were signing on to this thing, using their government email accounts. It's amazing. Well, now the database is out there. Other people are setting up websites where you can search the email of your spouse to see if they were signed up for this. And this is so funny. What I'd like to see is a statistical breakdown of the data. How many of these people who signed up here in America or are Republicans, you know, family values people, or Christian, for example. And apparently so many people are now checking up on their spouses. Some of the websites that were set up to allow you to type in an email address, you know, are they in or out, are actually on overload. That's how popular it's been. Somebody's taken the data and actually made up a cheater's map of the globe where cheating is happening the most. And it's rather odd. It's more the East Coast than the West Coast of the United States, certainly all over Europe. And one issue that was raised over at 21st Century Wire is whether this was actually somebody's idea of a honeypot. Because they got all these financial CEOs, all these politicians, government officials who signed up for this thing, leaving themselves wide open for blackmail. Yes, we have the proof that you are cheating on your wife, or at least you're thinking about doing it, and we'll keep it secret as long as you start sending over little bits of data that we need from here and there. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, this could have been set up by the NSA, the FBI, or the CIA, CSIS. MI5 could be the Mossad. And actually the fact that hackers broke into it and made the data public undermines its use as a blackmail tool. You can't blackmail somebody with a secret that's already out there. And by the way, 95% of the female profiles on the Ashley Madison website were phony. They're being sued for fraud on that regard. No, there wasn't a huge number of married women waiting for you to come and add spice to their life. It was all a big fake. Now, as you know, because those of us telling the truth do not get paid millions of dollars a year to do what we do, we have to rely on donations, which we're always in need of, and advertising. And you've probably noticed that the online advertisers are getting more and more pushy. In fact, we had already 3 of the new advertisers we were trying out for What Really Happened, we've already had to fire for doing things like dragging the web page to force people to look at their video. And a lot of people are calling attention to it. The New York Times is out there talking about the explosive growth in blocking technology. And there's almost a war going on inside your computer between the advertisers saying, you will look at my ad, and people saying, I don't want another ad for Viagra or sports betting or things that I don't really need. And the New York Times is saying the online ad industry is going to have to adapt to produce ads that are simpler, less invasive, far more transparent and upfront about what they're doing, or risk getting blocked forever. And it's kind of funny because I had an email dialogue with one of our advertisers that I did wind up terminating my relationship with. And I said, I've worked in advertising for a lot of years. I began all the way back with Robert Abel & Associates in the 1980s. I've won some advertising awards. I do know the industry. I've produced and directed TV commercials. And the online advertising industry is repeating all of the same horrible mistakes as we saw in the early days of TV advertising. And they didn't work for TV. They're not working for the online advertisers. And if you look at the ads we produce for our clients, not the ones they put in there, but the ones we produce, we try and be clever, creative, engage the curiosity of the person, because if you create an ad that alienates and builds a sense of hostility in the person that's being shoved at, you're not going to sell the product. You may generate some immediate numbers of impressions, but your clients aren't going to be selling products. And I hope the online ad community is going to wake up to how self-destructive they are right now. We'll be right back. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to the show. And we have been talking about this out-of-control political correctness. They're trying to tell us not to think certain thoughts, not to use certain words, because somewhere on planet Earth there's a lone individual who's offended by it. Okay? And by the way, you cannot have freedom of speech without offending somebody. That's just a reality. If you're worried about offending people, you will never enjoy your right to freedom of speech. Maybe that's the real goal behind political correctness. But we've been seeing all this nonsense about banning the words boy and girl in school for the comfort of those who are still trying to figure it out. They're not going to use mother and father anymore on a birth certificate or any document. It's parent 1, parent 2, parent 3, parent 4, parent 5 in this age of GMO, whatever. So over at Yale University, there is a movement there to call for the abolition of the word master because of its connotations of slavery and racism, which is going to be a bit of a headache for MasterCard, the Master Lock Company, the Masters Golf Tournament, and I'm kind of wondering what word they're going to come up with for sexual self-gratification. It's getting a little fringy out there. Now then, over the last week, I have been flooded with all kinds of junk email. Somebody out there is getting very nervous. Somebody's trying to junk up my forum page at gcnlive.com with chemtrails. You know, obviously Rivero's part of the cover. He won't acknowledge the chemtrails and all the rest of this other stuff. And somebody sent me this ebook about how the Earth is really flat. And we've been lied to all of our lives about the round Earth. All we have to do is look at the Bible, and it will tell us the world is flat. And everybody's been lying about whatever, along with the usual dosage of Apollo moon landings were fake, no planes at the Pentagon, all the rest of that nonsense. And I got a lot of these. Now, I don't think anybody actually thinks I'm going to post this kind of tripe on my website. I haven't in these years. And I'm pretty convinced that the Earth is not flat, for reasons I don't need to go into. But I think what's going on is I'm seeing this stuff popping up all over the place. It is an act of desperation on the cusp of madness. Somebody is flooding the Internet and the independent media with this flat Earth nonsense, and it reminds me very much of how Usenet was flooded with all this horrible, disgusting porn just ahead of Senator Exxon trying to get a law passed for government control of Internet content in the name of public decency back in 1995. So we're being set up here for somebody in the corporate media to say, look at those kooks on the Internet. They actually think the world is flat. Because they wouldn't be going to this effort. And by the way, do you remember not too long ago, National Geographic came out with an article about why people don't trust science anymore, and in that list was, there are people who think the Earth is really flat. Oh boy, are they a bunch of stoops that they don't trust scientists when the scientists say humans are warming the Earth, GMOs are perfectly safe, vaccines are effective, and so forth and so on. Now then, the first snow of the coming winter has hit Colorado as of today. Old Farmer's Almanac is saying it's going to be a harsh winter. It certainly looks that way to me. The melt season in Greenland ended a month early, but that did not stop NOAA from coming out with an article declaring this last July as Earth's hottest month ever on record. You wouldn't believe how broiling it is. And they're a little late to the gate because Stephen Goddard already reported on how NOAA had gone back to the temperature records of earlier years and shifted them downward. It's a statistical adjustment. It's a correction. We have to adapt to new changing blah, 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 blah. Basically, they Orwellized the earlier records, lowered them so that they could say, July was the hottest month ever. See, global warming is real. Global warming is real. These people are shameless. They never give up. We're already seeing indications of a coming hard winter, and still they're pushing this crap about human-caused global warming. You have to pay carbon taxes. You will buy carbon credits. You will let the government tell you how to live your lifestyle so that we can save planet Earth from you icky-poo human beings. And it's not just icky-poo human beings. Apparently, the Environmental Protection Agency has come out saying cows are causing global warming and it must stop. And there's a rumor going around they're going to call the program Obama Cork. Out in California, Governor Jerry Brown of No Vaccine Choice fame has declared that anybody who questions human-caused global warming, you're genetically inferior troglodytes. There's just something wrong with you that you won't believe when we tell you humans are warming the planet and only a carbon tax can save mankind. Now, there's another article out there over in Veterans Today saying the main reason behind this human-caused global warming hoax is justification for carbon taxes and submission to a global environmental authority who will take over control of all food, water, land, mineral, information, education, means of production. It's one of the pillars on which the push for the New World Order was founded. Human-caused global warming, a pandemic, and global financial collapse. And all three pillars are in trouble. I mean, they were pushing the Global Health Authority in response to the 2009 swine flu pandemic, which turned out not to be a pandemic at all. And the Tamiflu that they were making billions of dollars on turned out to be less effective against the flu than ordinary over-the-counter acetaminophen. But it makes money, and that's why they're doing it. The second pillar, of course, is a global financial meltdown, which does seem inevitable, and they're going to say, see, we need a global private central bank to fix things. And that's going to be a tough sell. We all know it's the private central banks that have created this mess. Setting up an even bigger one is not going to be seen as a solution by pretty much anybody. And the third was human-caused global warming. We must have a global environmental authority to keep climate from changing, which is in and of itself another hoax. You can't stop climate from changing. It's always changed. It always will. There's never been a time in the geological history of planet Earth where climate stayed the same. That's an illusion. It's an absolute myth. And because climate is dominated by solar output and the changing shape of the Earth's orbit, it doesn't matter how much carbon tax you pay or carbon credits you buy and sell or how much you let the government tell you what batteries and solar panels you can use in your home. It's going to be about as effective as when Caligula declared war on the ocean and ordered his soldiers to stab the ocean with spears. It may look good, not going to really do much of anything. Now then, the other day, we were talking about Carly Fiorina and her campaign for president and how Donald Trump had sort of jabbed her over the fact that she single-handedly almost destroyed the iconic American company Hewlett-Packard. And I had related how products that we bought from Hewlett-Packard while she was in charge turned out to be a disaster that almost wrecked our fledgling production company. And I was saying, even though is it better since she left? Has HP learned a lesson? And unfortunately, it turns out they haven't. Because recently, the big antique pre-Fiorina laserjet printer that my wife prints her sheet music on died. And that's not a complaint. We got years and years of great service out of it. And I was going to give it a Viking funeral, but the Homeowners Association has some rule against that. And I got her another printer. I had to order it online. And yes, it's from Hewlett-Packard. And we discovered earlier today there's a problem. When you're in the middle of a print job and it runs out of paper, the reset button cancels the job. After you put more paper in, you hit the reset button, it cancels the print job. Turns out you have to lift the little lid over the ink cartridge, slam it back down, turn around 3 times, and swing a dead chicken counterclockwise over your head before it'll work. So no, in point of fact, Hewlett-Packard hasn't recovered from the Fiorina dynasty. There's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. We will be back tomorrow, Friday, here on the Genesis Communication Network. Once again, a big thank you to all of you who've been calling your local talk radio stations. It's getting results. We're getting inquiries. We've picked up a couple of new new on-air affiliates are going to be joining us next month. So thank you, helping get the word out. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.